Good evening. We are back to the Spirits book, and today we are going to finally end the discussion on Sonambulism, Ecstatic Trance, and Second Sight, but not before we go through Kardec's discussion on it again. We have been studying for the past 3-4 weeks each of these states of altered conscience, or some of them, and others second sight, not really altered conscience in conscience in many of the events. But now Kardec is going to take us over his own definitions and reviews of the three aspects. So Philip, can you read for us? We are going to discuss again. You're on mute, Philip.
Theoretical summary of somnambulism, ecstatic trance, and second sight. Natural somnambulism occurs spontaneously and independent of any known external cause, but among certain people endowed with a special physical makeup, they may be produced artificially through the action of a magnetic agent. The state called magnetic somnambulism is no different than natural somnambulism, except that it is artificially produced, while the other is spontaneous. Natural somnambulism, despite its miraculous nature, is a well-known fact that few now dispute. Why should we view magnetic somnambulism as more extraordinary or incredible simply because it is produced artificially? Like so many other phenomena, some say that charlatans exploit it, but that is another reason to refuse abandoning it to their hands. Whenever science embraces somnambulism, charlatans will have far less influence on the masses. Meanwhile, since both natural and artificial somnambulism effectively are a fact, there is no arguing against fact. They are gaining grounds despite detractors, even in the realm of science, where it is entering through a multiple of side doors instead of through the front. Its right to be scientifically respected will soon be fully recognized. For Spiritism, somnambulism is much more than a physical wonder. Somnambulism sheds a brilliant light on psychology, and it is a state in which we can study the soul, because in this state, the soul fully reveals itself. One of the phenomena that characterize the soul is clairvoyance, which is independent of the ordinary organs of sight. Critics claim that somnambulists do not see all the time and at the will of the experimental scientists as they see with their eyes. Should we be shocked that the results are not the same given that the means are different? Is it logical to expect identical effects when the instruments do not exist? The soul has properties just like the eyes, and the former must be judged in its own right and not by analogy. The root of the clairvoyance of both the magnetic and the natural somnambulist is the same exactly. It is an attribute of the soul, and it is, in fact, an intrinsic ability of the spiritual being in us, and which has no limits than those assigned to the soul itself. They see wherever their souls can transport themselves, regardless of the distance. At a distance, somnambulists do not see from where their bodies are located, as if though through a telescope. It is, instead, as if the objects in the scope of their vision are in front of them, as if they were exactly where they see them because their souls are there in reality. This is why their bodies seem to be overpowered and deprived of sensation until their souls retake possession of them. This partial separation of the soul and the body is abnormal and is not permanent. This is why the body feels tired after a lapse of time, especially when the soul is active during that partial separation. The fact that soul sight or spirit sight is not restricted and has no definite center explains why somnambulists are unable to attribute any special organs or focus to it. They see because they see, without knowing why or how, because sight for them as spirits does not have its own place in the body. If they refer their perception to their body, this focus seems to be where vital activity is greatest, particularly in the brain, the epigastria region, or whatever organ is where the bond between the spirit and body is strongest.
Okay.
Stop
here because there is a long way to go still. So when we talk about, we discussed that, but let's review what we discussed. When we talk about sonambulism, which includes sleepwalking. Sleepwalking is one of the forms of sonambulism. The other form being the somnambulist in the physical body in a sleep state, and the somnambulist in the spiritual world, interacting with the spiritual world, and may or may not report what they are experiencing. So you have Edgar Cayce that through somnambulism gave prescriptions, made predictions, and other acts that were reported by his wife, his secretary, and I think there was someone else there later. So the somnambulist can interact with others or not. There is what they call natural somnambulism, which is something that happens naturally, and the magnetic somnambulism, which is induced, like hypnotism is induced, right? So a person is induced to enter in a state of somnambulism, but they are the same, as Kardec says here. There is no different. Magnetic somnambulism is no different than natural somnambulism. Then he talks about, he goes on about, that science needs to recognize, understand better, and we still, 160 years later, science hasn't evolved much on this understanding of this act, because for it to accept, it has to accept the existence of the spiritual body separating from the physical body partially, which is what happens in a somnambulic state. And then he talks a little bit about how a somnambulist sees with the soul, not with the physical eyes, and it goes to places and is reporting what he or she sees in that place. So the physical body is in a state of sleep or dissociated from the spiritual body, in the sense that when you hear of a somnambulic state, a sleepwalking state, the spirit may be interacting with other people, but it's not really the physical body. The physical body is the instrument the spirit uses, like a chair or a table. So it's not the physical body through the physical brain or anything like that. It's the spirit is using its physical body. The clairvoyance that he brings the concept here, we discussed a little bit, the ability to see things of the spiritual world, right? We talked about clairvoyance in Spiritism. We discussed the three aspects of clairvoyance here outside spiritism, which is remote viewing, foretelling, and telling of the future and telling of the past, right? So the three types: remote viewing, seeing the present, foretelling, predicting the future, and past telling. I don't remember exactly what was the name that they called, seeing what happened in the past. So, but we spiritists, we know that clairvoyance is an attribute of the soul and not of the physical body. So the spirit is outside the physical body and is seeing things and reporting what they are seeing. So they see, as Kardec says here, they see wherever their souls transport themselves, regardless of the distance. And they see not from where their bodies are located. They see as the objects are in front of them, because the soul transports itself to the places and they see what's happening there. The seeing in the spirit is also, despite the perispirit having eyes, the seeing is not specifically through the eyes. It sees through, their perception is throughout the spiritual body. And that's why Kardec says here their focus seems to be where vital activity is greatest, particularly in the brain, the epigastrial region, or whatever organ is where the bond between the spirit and body is strongest, okay? So a little bit more of what we study in somnambulism. I don't know if anyone has any questions here, any doubts? Okay, so let's continue, Philip. Second part of somnambulism.
The scope of somnambulistic clarity is not limitless. Even when completely free, a spirit only possesses the abilities and knowledge associated with its degree of evolution. This limitation is further narrowed when associated with matter and subjected to its influence. This is why somnambulistic clairvoyance is neither universal nor foolproof. It is less reliable when it deviates from the purpose given by nature and is instead treated as a curiosity or subject of experimentation. When the spirits of somnambulistics are free, they more easily communicate with other spirits, incarnate or discarnate, through the contact of fluids that make up their perispirits and which enable the transmission of thought like an electric wire. Somnambulistics do not require verbal speech to convey thoughts, which they feel and deduce. This method of perception makes them highly accessible and vulnerable to the influences of the moral atmosphere surrounding them. Because of this, the presence of a large group of spectators to witness a somnambulist ability is not ideal, particularly when it is comprised of those who are only curious. These manifestations only occur freely in intimate gatherings and under the influence of sympathetic surroundings. The presence of those who are malicious or hostile produces the same effect as someone's hand touching the sensitive person. Somnambulists see their spirits and their bodies at the same time. The spirit and the body are two beings that represent their dual existence. Both spiritual and physical blend into one by the ties that united them. Somnambulists do not always understand this situation and the duality, which often leads them to speak of themselves as if they were speaking of another person. In such cases, the physical being sometimes speaks to the spiritual being, and the spiritual being sometimes speaks to the physical being. In each physical existence, Spirits acquire more knowledge and experience. They lose sight of these gains when they reincarnate because matter is too rudimentary to allow them to recall this knowledge fully. However, they remember it as spirits. This is how some somnambulists show signs of progressing knowledge beyond their education and apparent intellectual capacity. Therefore, the intellectual and scientific inferiority of somnambulists while awake does not disprove the knowledge that they may display when lucid. Depending on circumstances and intention, they may draw this knowledge from their own experience, from clairvoyant perception of actual events, or from counsels that they receive from other spirits. Their statements are more or less correct depending on their degree of evolution. In both natural and magnetic somnambulism, God provides undeniable proof of the existence and independence of the soul by allowing us to witness the awe-inspiring display of its emancipation. Through these phenomena, it opens to us the book of our destiny. When somnambulists describe their visions, it is obvious that they are seeing what they are describing, just not through their human eyes. They see themselves at the distance point and feel transported there. Part of the somnambulist is actually present at that distant point. And since it is not the body, it can only be the soul or spirit. We human beings lose ourselves in abstract and unintellectual metaphysical subtleties in search of the root of our moral existence. However, God places the simplest and most certain means of studying experimental psychology right within our reach.
Okay, thanks, Philip. So we have to remember, again, that because someone enters in a sonambulic state, doesn't mean that they are more evolved than they are. They actually are. So the clarity is limited by the abilities and knowledge associated with the degree of evolution. And here Kardec brings a notion that we haven't discussed before, which is the sonambulic state in a crowd, in a group of people watching the somnambulists having the experience. And he says that the presence of those that are malicious or hostile produces a negative effect. It causes, disturbs the somnambulists and can affect the communications that they are giving, what they are reporting. So he's talking about studying somnambulists in public meetings, like at that time, at his time when he had some public mediumship meetings, right? He may have had the study of somnambulists in a public environment. So he says that they are susceptible, vulnerable to the influences of the moral atmosphere surrounding them. So there are two things here. Whatever they communicate, through their clairvoyance, what they are seeing in the spiritual world, it's not a guarantee that is the truth, because it depends on their evolution. And again, remember the concept of 10 painters painting a model, right? You are going to have 10 different interpretations of the model, 10 different visions of the model. So each one that is going to have their experiences in the spiritual world, the somnambulists will report what they are seeing, affected by their own degree of involvement and their understanding of and their focus on what they saw, right? Also, it's important to remember that because the somnambulist have access to more than the physical body, it may access knowledge that it doesn't have as a incarnate being. And the story that I told you about the girl that Dr. Alberto Almeida had the conversation with the father, that the girl that was in a sonambolic state and sat, she was 14 years old, 13, 14, sat and spoke with the father like an adult spirit, telling of the father of what she saw, of the hurt that he was causing to the family because of his affair that he was having. And she demonstrated a much more evolved knowledge and understanding than what she has as an incarnate spirit. So there is a limitation of the evolution of the spirit, but the evolution of the spirit in the global sense, not the evolution of the incarnated spirit, right? It's a subtle difference, but there is a difference, right? The spirit has a degree of evolution that may not be fully reflected in the physical body. We have to remember that, okay? So the part that he says here, somnambulist sees the spirits and their bodies at the same time. In an out-of-body experience, in all those reports that you see of out-of-body experience, in near-death experience, you can find descriptions of someone seeing their own physical body and their own spiritual body, because if they detach themselves from their physical body and are able to see their physical body, of course they are able to see also their spiritual body. Like we look at our physical bodies and we see our physical bodies. So if we stay outside our physical bodies in our spiritual body and has the ability to see both, we are going to see both. Now, if you don't understand the situation, you don't know that you are in a sonambulic state, you may have this issue with the duality, which is seeing two of you in a sense, and that's it can be confusing, and it can make some somnambulists refer to them in the third person, the physical body in the third person, and things like that. The knowledge and understanding, and as they say, the intellectual and scientific knowledge of the somnambulists will reflect on how they communicate. So their statements are more or less correct depending on the degree of evolution, right? I think that that is it. I don't think there's anything else here on somnambulism. If anyone has any question on somnambulism.
I have a question. I have
sure, Paco.
Or rather, I'm kind of confused. In that explanation that you said about duality, that the somnambulist is able to see the physical being and is also able to see the spiritual being.
Yes.
Okay, who is the one seeing both?
The spirit.
So the spirit is actually in a somnambulistic state, like in essence, aside from the physical body and divorce of the spiritual body.
When you are in a dream state, right? You are dreaming. You go and experience the spiritual world. If during your dream you look at yourself, what do you see?
In my dream, I see myself. Yeah, I see that
your spiritual body, not the physical body, because you are there in the spiritual world.
Okay, so the spiritual being sees himself and then sees the physical body. Okay, now I get it. Yes, sees himself as a spiritual body and then sees the spiritual body. I mean the physical body. Now I get it. Okay.
Yeah, it's confusing, but it's simple at the same time, because
No,
if
no,
you
no, no,
think,
no. No, you explained it well. You explained it well. You explained it well. Well, you explained it very well.
Yeah, but if you don't understand, it may be you don't understand when you are in the state, in a sonambulic state, it may be confusing because you are seeing yourself two bodies, right? And if you don't really understand what's going on, it can be very confusing. That's what Kardec said here. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Carol.
Yes, would a somnambulist who has a certain healing ability be able to, quote unquote, diagnose or see sort of with X-ray vision what a problem is that a person might be having? Would this be typical of a somnambulist?
Not typical, but possible.
Possible.
Somnambulist, yes. So there is a case in the Spiritist Review that Kardec tells of a boy that had this ability to see what was the diseases of the physical body, and this was very interesting because he could see what was wrong, but he could not prescribe anything. So he had a doctor in the spiritual world associated with him, giving him the prescription. So he would see what was the problem, report, and then he would give the prescription. Because one day he was describing what was going on, and Kardec asked, what is the prescription? And he said, the doctor is not here today, so I don't know what to say. So yes, it's possible. But again, depends on the knowledge of the somnambulist, right?
Okay. Thank you, John.
John, allow me to share that Edgar Cayce actually gave the prescription in the readings.
Yes, he gave the prescriptions, exactly.
Yeah, and there's in fact there's a book based on those prescriptions.
Yeah, we don't know exactly if Edgar Cayce was himself seeing the disease and giving the prescription, or if he was assisted by a spirit, because I don't remember reading anything one way or another. What we all know is that he gave the prescriptions for the diseases. Exactly. But how it was done specifically, I didn't read anything about it, so I don't know. May be the case that he was fully able to do everything himself in the sonambolic state, but I haven't seen anything. I haven't read anything. Okay. Elmo, anything here to add on the prescriptions and doctor?
No, I think it's that what you said. The one who sees must know normal from abnormal, not to tell what's wrong. You know, if you look at tissue, let's say of the brain or of the stomach, you have to know what's normal to know what's abnormal. So it has to be somebody with some degree of understanding of anatomy. So a sonambolic may see a lot of things, but it may not understand what it's saying.
Yeah, depends on the knowledge. That's exactly what what we said, right?
Yeah.
You know, it depends on the moral and intellectual evolution of the spirit. You know, it's like us here, right? You go to a physics class. If you don't understand anything about physics, you're going to be there bored to death or sleeping, because you know, if someone starts talking about a bunch of things that you have no idea what they're talking about, there's nothing you can do, right? So if you understand the concept, that you are able to participate. So it depends on your knowledge, right? And I'm sure the sonambulic, what is important here is that the sonambulic has an ability that goes beyond the abilities of the physical body, but it's limited to the evolution of the spirit. Okay. Okay, ecstatic trance.
Ecstatic trance is the state in which the soul's independence from the body is most apparent and tangible to the observer. In dreaming and somnambulism, the soul wanders through physical worlds. In an ecstatic trance, the soul penetrates an unknown world, that of ethereal spirits, with whom it communicates, bounded by unsurpassable limits that would not be granted to the spirit without fully breaking the links that tie it to the body. Enveloped by different wonders, captivated by a harmony that is foreign to earth, and overwhelmed by immeasurable bliss, the soul catches a glimpse of heavenly happiness, and it may be said that it places one foot on the threshold of eternity. The annihilation of physical ties is almost complete while a person is in an ecstatic trance. The body possesses organic life only, and a single thread connects it to the soul. It would break forever from the exertion of only the slightest effort. In this state, all earthly thoughts disappear and give way to the purified sensitivity that is the essence of our immaterial being. Completely absorbed in this transcendent state of contemplation, a person in an ecstatic trance views human life merely as a stop on our eternal journey. The successes and failures of this lower world, along with its rudimentary joys and sorrows, are nothing more than pointless incidents along a journey, and the ecstatic person anxiously awaits its end. The same thing happens with ecstatics as with somnambulists, depending on their level of elevation. Their lucidity may be more purified or less so, and they may or may not be able to grasp the truth of things. In their abnormal state of ecstasy, there is sometimes more nervous excitement than true lucidity. In fact, this nervous excitement impairs their lucidity, and the resulting revelations are often a mixture of truth and error, inspirational and ridiculous ideas, or even outrageous whims. Inferior spirits often take advantage of this excitement, which is a source of weakness when unrestrained. To overpower the ecstatic person, they assume the appearance that confirms the ideas and preconceptions from their waking state. This is an obstacle, but not all cases are similar, and we must weigh their statements carefully and judge their revelations under the microscope of reason. The soul can be emancipated when it is awake, and this allows people possessing the second sight to see, hear, and feel beyond the limits of our senses. They perceive things wherever their soul may travel through ordinary sight, and judge these perceptions to be of some kind of mirage. When the second sight occurs, the physical state is visibly changed. A person's gaze becomes distant, and his or her physical appearance reflects that the nervous system is in an unusual state. It is apparent that the physical eyes take no part in present perceptions because vision continues despite the closing of the eyes.
Sorry, we enter into the second sight here. This last paragraph is second sight. But anyway, let's go back to ecstatic trance. So ecstatic trance it's the same as a somnambulist trance, but the somnambulic, as Kardec explains here, the soul wanders through physical worlds. What does he mean by that? Physical worlds here doesn't mean only here on the or among the incarnates. But when you are in spiritual regions around Earth, you are also in regions connected to Earth, connected to the physical world, connected to Earth. Even Nosso Lar, a spiritual colony like Nosso Lar, is a spiritual colony connected to Earth. In an ecstatic trance, the soul goes beyond the physical world, enters into an unknown world, unknown to us, that of ethereal spirits, and it communicates with these more evolved spirits. It's a very the spirit enters into a state of detachment from the physical body, which is very high, and it's very loosely connected to the physical body. And it's the experience is an experience that brings them such a state of happiness that it's sometimes difficult to come back to the physical world. As Kardec says here, the body possesses only organic life, and a single thread connects it to the soul. But he reminds us that it is limited by the knowledge and understanding and evolution of the spirit. So we cannot truly 100% believe in what an ecstatic spirit is telling us, because it can be influenced by their own limitations of understanding what they are experiencing. This, as he says here, this excitement that they enter into this state of ecstatic trance, it may cause them to report things that they may not be there. And inferior spirits may take this opportunity to influence what they are saying, to disturb the ideas, to distort the ideas that they are presenting. And so we have always, again, to be very careful to the reports of someone that tells us that they entered into an ecstatic trance, or they are in an ecstatic trance, what they are saying, because it may not be 100% what's happening there. It may be influenced by their own spiritual limitations. Okay. I mentioned the composition brought by that Italian composer from the 17th century, and that he received in an ecstatic trance. He brings it and starts writing it in an ecstatic trance, and it's here for us all to hear and see. I showed you a part of it, so we can understand the process, right? And then I brought the story of Euripides Barçanufo, that had an encounter with Jesus Christ himself, and that brought the report that Jesus was crying for those that know the gospel and don't know, but are not practicing it, right? Those are two examples of ecstatic trance that I brought when we were studying the case. Okay, any questions, doubts on ecstatic trance here?
Yeah, I have a little comment or a question. I know you did a lot of research on this. So the ecstatic goes to this very high level of spiritual existence, so far from physicality and everything else. But at the same time, Kardec says that they are at risk of being targeted by inferior spirits to take advantage of their excitement. So I am assuming over here that they may become target so these lower spirits can take advantage of the excitement when they return, when they are back into our realm of existence, so to say, and then they don't know how to explain anything, and at that point, they can be targeted by inferior spirits.
I understand you also.
That's my understanding of it, right?
Yes, and that's my understanding also. I thought about it. I was reflecting on it, and my conclusion is can only be when they are telling what they saw, telling what they experienced already in back in the physical body.
Yeah, and then all of our prejudices take place, and we start saying things in accordance with our level of understanding.
Yes, yes. I'm more or less like what we read in Domain of Mediumship, right? Those mediums reporting what they saw, and André Luiz looking at them and said, "Where they are seeing this?" Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my understanding. Okay. Okay, second sight. So Philip read the first paragraph, so starting here, Philip.
The second sight for those who possess this gift appears as natural to them as conventional sight. It is an attribute of their being, and they are not aware of its exceptional character. They normally forget this brief lucidity, which fades from their memory like a distant dream. The power of the second sight varies from a perplexing sensation to a clear perception of present or distant things. In its rudimentary state, it gives some individuals acuity or confidence in their decisions and actions that they may call the precision of the moral glance. At a higher degree of development, it incites premonitions. Even further developed, it may show events that have already taken place or that are about to happen. Natural and artificial somnambulism, ecstatic trance, and second sight all stem from the same cause. Like dreams, they are a branch of natural phenomena and have always existed. History shows us that they have been recognized and exploited since the dawn of time. They provide an explanation for a great number of occurrences that irrational preconceptions have led humanity to label as supernatural.
So the second sight or remote viewing, like is better known here, is the ability of a spirit to see, an incarnated spirit to see the spiritual world. Okay, basically is that. Now, the ability to see and feel beyond the limits of our senses, as Kardec says here, right? They perceive things wherever their soul may travel through ordinary sight and judge these perceptions to be some kind of mirage. We gave the examples of some mediums like Divaldo Franco or Francisco Xavier that could see spirits in a normal state, right? Could see spirits in a regular, they can see spirits like they are seeing other incarnated beings. And that's second sight. Now, the ability to see things in the spiritual world and come back and tell what they are seeing, that some mediums have, or some psychics. Again, remember the distinction between a medium and a psychic, right? A psychic is using their own abilities. A medium is being an intermediary between the spiritual world and the physical world for us to better understand. I know that the notion that we are all mediums, we can all interact with the spiritual world, and yes, but for us to understand the ability to see in the spiritual world is a psychic ability. It's not a mediumistic ability, right? You can have mediums that have the ability to see also the spiritual world. They have clairvoyance, but you have those that have only the psychic abilities, and the psychic abilities in a more ample stage can allow them to see the future, to see the past and see the future. That's how we have so many psychics in every corner of New York City, right? Some of them true, some of them fake, of course, because when you pay, you have to receive something. And if they don't have the ability to always go there and see what's happening in the spiritual world, or have the ability to see your past or your future, it becomes, they have to give you something, and that creates opportunities for frauds. But it is the ability of seeing the spiritual world and reporting what they are seeing. Always remembering that we report what we are seeing according to our own interpretations, biases, and all the limitations that we all have, right? Kardec talks here about higher degree of development inside premonitions, and even further developed. It may show events that have already taken place, being seen the past, which are again the characteristics that we when you look for clairvoyant in the parapsychology dictionary, you see that remote viewing is seeing the present, foretelling is seeing the future, and past telling is seeing the past. Again, seeing the future, remember that the future can be seen from a higher point of view of predicting according to what's our understanding and realm of possibilities, but it's always limited by the free will of those involved in the prediction, right? So there is no written in stone in the future, right? Of course, you take a more evolved spirit that has seen this happen before, and based on what they see, they are able to predict what's going to happen in the future. It's not a guarantee, but it's based on knowledge and understanding, right? Like when we study probabilities here in the physical world, probabilities are based on a collection of data that indicates a probability of something to happen. That's how the spirits are able to predict the future with its limitations, okay? So that's second sight, which is or remote viewing or clairvoyance, depending different names for the same thing. I don't know if anyone has any additional questions here. No? So it's over. We finished the chapter. Now we're going to start on chapter 9, intervention of spirits on the physical world. We have 10 minutes, so we're going to start. The first penetration of our thoughts by spirits is not very long. It's only 3 questions, so we're going to do it. Okay?
Do spirits see everything that we do? They can if they so choose, since they are always with you. Practically, spirits only see what they direct their attention to and ignore what does not interest them.
We're surrounded by spirits. Can they see everything we do? Depending on their level of evolution, depending on our level of evolution, and depending on their interest. Again, when you walk 1 block on 5th Avenue, are you going to see all the 100 people that are going to be in front of you? No, you are not paying attention to them. Maybe you are paying attention to 1 or 2 that you are going to be able to tell that you saw that how that girl was dressed. You paid attention, but the other 80 that passed by you, you didn't pay attention to any of those. It's the same thing with us as spirits. Spirits are, when they're interested in us, if we allow them, according to our degree of evolution and their degree of evolution, they can see what we do, what we think, but they will be limited in their interest and our own necessities, right? People that come to Spiritism and start learning about spirits that can see everything we do, start thinking that whatever we are doing, we have spirits looking at us and interested, and we're not that interesting to begin with. So they're not that interested unless they want something special. They're not going to be paying attention to us.
A question.
Sure.
What about the protector spirits? The ones that are kind of like what they say, the guardian angels, the one that were assigned to us. If they were assigned to us, I presume they do have an interest.
Yes, but again, their interest in helping us moving forward. So they will be interested in what we are doing in terms of things that can help us move forward. They're not interested in looking at us having dinner, right? A simple example. They are interested if we are working we are studying, we're trying to learn more about our eternal beings. So they will be around us, helping us, trying to understand what what we are going through here, our challenges. So yes, they will be available to us whenever we need them. They'll be interested in helping us when we are making an effort, but they won't be around when we are doing trivial things. They have their own. They're not at our disposal 24/7 in the sense that they are always with us. They have their own life. They have their own business. They will be with us when we need them. Sincerely.
Okay. Oh, wow. I thought they were with me 24/7.
They can be if you need. But when you are watching a football game on Sunday, they're not interested, so they won't be with us. In that sense.
I know. I was like making light of the.
Now comes a more complex one. The second question.
Can spirits see our innermost thoughts? They often see what we would like to hide from yourselves. Neither acts nor thoughts can be hidden from spirits. So it is easier to hide something from an incarnate person than when that same person has passed on. Yes. Exactly. When you believe yourself to be in complete solitary privacy, you often have a crowd of spirits watching you.
Okay, so here is we have spirits associated with us, depending on what we are doing, right? So they more evolved spirits can see our thoughts, can read our thoughts, and can see our inner desires and tendencies. But it's not in a curiosity kind of way, but in a way that they can be of assistance. In our struggles, our imperfections that we are trying to overcome, they may be seeing and trying to help us. In our doubts, they may come and help inspire us. But in our inferior actions, they are trying to inspire us not to take the wrong path. But if we decide to do it, they will allow us to exercise our free will. And that's when we associate ourselves with inferior spirits. So inferior spirits are the crowd of spirits that will be watching us, waiting for us do to act on our inferior tendencies, so they can either partake with us or incite us to our inferior tendencies. So again, depends on what we are doing in our thoughts, right? We will have spirits that can associate with us depending on our vibrations. We are never alone, no, but again, depends on the level of interest the spirits have. When you are doing something absolutely neutral in terms of our moral evolution or imperfections, that's something that, you know, the football game in the Sunday afternoon, which is, you know, if you're not thinking bad thoughts or not thinking, you are just there watching it, you know, maybe spirits interested in football will be there, but nothing special, nothing particular. Okay.
.458. What do spirits who observe us think of us? That depends on the spirits themselves. Lighthearted spirits enjoy the small disturbances they cause you and laugh at your impatience. More serious spirits pity your flaws and try to help you rid yourself of them.
Oh, what the spirits who are around us think of us? Well, if they may, like the individuals who we live around our physical lives. There are those that want to make fun of us. There are those that want to help us, depending on each one of them and depending on what we are doing, right? So it's not much different. It's just that they are not visible to us. So they can, they are going to judge us from the other side according to their level of evolution and their interest, right? But we'll come back to this next week, okay? We'll talk a little bit more, because next is the influence of spirits on our thoughts and actions. So that goes a little deeper into what we just covered a little bit here.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah. Okay, so stop here. So this Saturday, the lecture is by Naur Fonseca from Boston on a skeptic's perspective on the immortality of the soul. It's a very interesting subject, but important to remind that we are celebrating 2 years of this live talks every Saturday. We started, the first one was on April, I believe April 11 of 2020. So we have 2 years of these talks, a lot of them, more than 100 talks. On Sunday, we have the initiation into Spiritism at 10 a.m. And then we are going to study, it's the second Sunday of the month, we're going to study the gospel according to Spiritism, okay? The book club, Dani, what's the chapter?
Sorry, I didn't chat you today, chapter 10. Chapter
10, okay. And Jusara is back with the inner transformation on Tuesdays at noon, on the Spiritism at noon, okay? For those that want to study with her. Right, Carol, can you do our final prayer?
Yes, certainly. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, we give thanks and gratitude for the opportunity to this evening to be together for our study of the Spirits book. We are studying chapter 8 and chapter 9, Ecstatic Trance, Second Sight, and the beginning of penetration of our thoughts by spirits. We are grateful for all the details that have been written and the process of each so well defined that we are able to go back and review many times to get a better and deeper understanding of these topics. We are grateful to be assisted tonight by the spiritual benefactors, the good spirits, our protector spirits as well, inviting us to journey, go deeper, to study, to open our hearts and minds to the teachings of Spiritism. We are grateful for all that we have received and that we will continue to receive as we do our part through our studies, through mindfulness, and through prayer. May we continue throughout the week and be vigilant each day, keeping our vibrations strong, keeping our vibrations high, helping us to be of greater assistance to ourselves and others in the world, in our community, and in our families. We have so many tools which can help us, and may we bring those forward now in our life, knowing that time is very valuable. Time is of the essence as we are going through a paradigm shift, many changes, many challenges, but also inner victories are occurring each and every day. We are growing and we are continuing to add to the wonderful arsenal of our keys. May we be of service. May we use our life in a charitable and generous way. We humbly ask now, as we go forward, for safety and protection as we return to family, friends, loved ones, and coworkers. We are never alone, and we do have the gifts which we can bring throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the year to others. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us, and may we continue to share these blessings with others through our discernment as they are able to receive them. We close now and remind ourselves to be beacons of light. And may we go forth in gratitude and peace. So be it.